Don't react, don't look at him. Just smile like I'm your father and you're happy to see me." Those words landed on Maya Chen like a cold hand pressed flat against her chest. Quiet, deliberate, impossible to unhear. She didn't know this man. Didn't know his name, didn't know why his eyes carried the weight of someone who had already seen the worst the world had to offer, and kept walking back into it anyway. But something in her gut, something older than logic and deeper than reason, told her to listen. And that choice, that single terrifying half-second choice, would be the difference between going home that night and never being found at all. But to understand why those words changed everything, we need to go back to where it all began. Back to the morning that looked, from the outside, exactly like every other Thursday morning Maya Chen had ever lived. The morning started the way every Thursday morning started for Maya Chen, with her alarm going off 12 minutes before she was ready for it. Her uniform already laid out on the bathroom door hook, and the faint smell of burnt coffee creeping up through the floorboards of her small apartment above Millfield Diner in Millfield, Kansas. Population 4,211, or 4,212 if you counted old Pete Calloway, who hadn't left the county in 31 years, and liked to say he didn't show up in any official record, because government haven't in any official record, because the government had never done a single thing for him worth documenting. Maya had heard that joke more times than she could count. She laughed every time, because Pete meant it every time. And there was something pure about a man who said exactly what he believed, even when it made him sound like he was half a step removed from wearing a tinfoil hat. She laced up her shoes, standing at the kitchen counter, eating half a piece of toast dry because the butter was still frozen solid and she hadn't remembered to pull it out the night before. This was her third shift in a row. Her feet hadn't fully recovered from the second one. But the rent on the apartment wasn't going to pay itself. And the tip jar wasn't going to fill itself either. And so Maya Chen tied her left shoe, then her right shoe, and she went downstairs. The diner was already moving when she pushed through the back door at 6:47 in the morning. Dot Hargrove, who had owned the place for 25 years and still worked the register herself because she didn't trust anyone from across the counter, gave Maya a nod, major nod, from across the counter. That nod meant two things: good morning, and you're already behind. Table 4 is waiting on a refill, Dot called without looking up from the register tape she was pulling through. And the couple by the window wants the eggs remade, too runny. On it, Maya said, reaching for the coffee pot before she'd even pulled her hair back all the way. Her uniform jacket hung open, the way it always did, the pink of her shirt underneath catching the morning light as she moved. She moved fast. She always moved fast on Thursday mornings because the Thursday crowd was the bread and butter crowd. The farmers stopping in before the feed store opened. The county road workers who had to be on site by 7:30. The retired men who had nowhere to be but liked the company anyway. They tipped well if you kept the coffee hot and kept your smile easy and didn't make them wait. Maya knew all their names. She knew that Gerald Marsh took his eggs over medium with hot sauce on the side, never on top. She knew that the Delaney brothers always argued about whether it was going to rain this weekend and were always wrong in opposite directions, and were all in opposite directions. And she knew that sweet old Mrs. Eleanor Briggs, who sat in the second booth every Thursday and ordered the seam blossom short sit-up, would leave $5 pancake short stack, would leave a $5 tip no matter what. And would always say, "God bless you, honey," when she left. And that those 4 words on a rough morning were sometimes the only thing that made Maya feel like she was doing something that mattered. She poured coffee. She took orders. She called back to Ray in the kitchen when he was moving too slow, and Ray called back something she pretended not to hear. She moved between tables like she had done it 1,000 times, because she had done it 1,000 times. And the diner hummed and clanked and filled with the smell of bacon grease and fresh biscuits, and the low, comfortable murmur of people starting their day. And then the bell above the front door rang. It wasn't a different bell than the one that rang every other time the door opened. It made the exact same sound it always made. But something in Maya's body registered it differently. A slight tightening across her shoulders, a shift in her breathing she couldn't explain. She even turned around to look. He was tall. Lean in the way that comes from years of physical work and hard weather and a life lived mostly outdoors. His jacket was black leather, worn soft at the elbows and collar. And across the back in those unmistakable letters it read Iron Ravens MC, a patch on our chest, another on the sleeve. He wore boots that had seen actual miles. Not the kind bought to look the part. He stood in the doorway for exactly 3 seconds, not hesitating, not looking for a seat, just looking at the room. And in those 3 seconds, Maya had the distinct and uncomfortable feeling that he had already seen every person in it, and made a calculation she wasn't privy to. He chose the counter stool closest to the door. He didn't pick up a menu. He didn't look at the specials board. He just set both hands flat on the counter and waited. And Maya, because it was her section and because she had a job to do, walked over with a coffee pot and a clean mug. "Morning. Coffee to start?" "Black," he said. One word. "No please, no thank you, no smile." His voice was low and even, like a man who had learned a long time ago that you didn't need to raise it to be heard. Maya poured. She set the pot down. She pulled her notepad from her apron. "You know what you want, or do you need a minute?" He looked at her then. Really looked. Not the kind of glance people give when they're scanning a menu and accidentally make eye contact, but the kind of look that takes stock of something. His eyes were dark. Not threatening, not warm either, just attentive. The way a person looks when they are paying close attention to something they haven't decided how to feel about yet. "Just the coffee," he said. "Sure." Maya wrote nothing on her notepad and moved on. She forgot about him for the next 17 minutes. That was the honest truth. She forgot about him completely because Table 6 needed their check, and Mrs. Briggs's pancakes were up, and Gerald hot sauce was out, and Gerald Marsh's hot was out. So she had to go to the back and open a new bottle. And by the time she made it back around to the counter, the man in the leather jacket was just sitting there, hands around the mug, coffee barely touched. And his eyes were on her. She poured Gerald's coffee and told herself it was nothing. Some people were watchers. Some people came into a diner alone and had nothing better to do than observe the people around them. It wasn't a crime. It wasn't even unusual. But she noticed it again 2 minutes later when she came back past the counter to drop off a check. He wasn't watching the door. He wasn't watching the television mounted in the corner, running the local weather forecast on mute. He was watching her. Not in a way that felt like flirting. Not in a way that felt like recognition. In a way that felt like monitoring. She shook it off. She was tired. Third shift. She was reading things into nothing. She was wrong. At 7:23, the bell above the front door rang again. The man who came in was nothing like the first one. Medium height, medium build. A gray jacket, the kind with no particular brand or style. The kind designed to be forgotten. He didn't stand in the doorway the way Cole had. He came in quickly and quietly and took the corner booth, the one with his back to the wall and a clear line of sight and a clear off-bite to almost every other table in the room. He picked up the menu like he was going to order. Maya went over. Standard greeting. He ordered the full breakfast plate without much thought. She wrote it down and went back to the kitchen window to clip the ticket. And she didn't think anything of it, because the taffeton full, because the diner was full, and she had 12 other things to keep track of. She didn't notice, not at first, that he never looked at the menu after she walked away. She didn't notice that he ordered a full breakfast plate, that when notion a full but that when it came up and she brought it over, he didn't touch it. Not the eggs, not the toast, not the orange juice she'd set down automatically. She didn't notice any of that until the man at the counter, the tall man with the leather jacket and the dark, quiet eyes, suddenly wasn't watching her anymore. He was watching the corner booth. Maya was on her way back to the coffee station when she registered it. She slowed just slightly. The man at the counter had shifted on his stool, just a fraction, enough to angle his body toward the back of the room. His hands were still flat on the counter, but they were no longer loose. They were still in the way that hands go still when the rest of the body is paying very close attention to something. She looked at the corner booth. The man in the gray jacket was sitting with his hands around his orange juice glass, not drinking it, just holding it. And he was looking at Maya. Not at his food, not around the room, directly, quietly, carefully at Maya. Her stomach moved in a way she didn't like. She went to the coffee station. She picked up the pot. She told herself she was being ridiculous and started back across the floor. And that was when the man at the counter shifted again. This time toward her. And when she came level with him on her way to table 3, he said something very quietly without turning his head. "Don't stop walking. Don't look at me when I talk. Just keep moving like this is normal." Maya's feet kept moving. She didn't know why. Some part of her brain that operated faster than thought took the instruction, ran with it. "There's a man in the corner booth," he said, still quiet, still level, still not looking at her. Gray jacket. "He hasn't touched his food. He's been watching you since he walked in. He was watching you before that, from outside, through the window." Maya's hands tightened on the coffee pot. "Don't react," he said. "Don't look at him. Just keep moving." She made it to table 3. She poured coffee for Gerald Marsh. Her hand was steady, and she couldn't explain how. Because inside her chest something was happening that didn't have a good name. Not quite fear, not quite disbelief. Somewhere in between the two, pressed up against each other and vibrating. Gerald said something about the weather. She smiled and said something back. She didn't know what. She came back around the counter on her return loop, and the man in the leather jacket spoke again. Still low, still controlled. I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to hear it and not fall apart. Can you do that? Yes, she said, barely above a breath. You're in danger. That man is not here for breakfast. He followed you here, and you are going to keep doing your job, and you are going to act like nothing is wrong. And if he asks you anything or gets up and moves toward you, you're going to come directly to me. He paused. Just one beat. My name is Cole, and right now I'm your father. You got that? Maya Chen had grown up in the foster system. 3 different homes across 2 states. She had never known her real father. Not his name, not his face, not the sound of his voice. The word landed in her chest like something thrown from a great height. What? She said. For everyone watching us right now, I'm your dad. I just came in to surprise you at work. You're happy to see me. That's the story. Stick to it. He finally looked at her then, just briefly, and for half a second his expression shifted into something that looked from the outside exactly like a proud and tired father looking at his daughter across a diner counter on an ordinary Thursday morning. Can you hold it together? I don't even know you, she said. No, he agreed, but he doesn't know that. For 3 long seconds, Maya stood at the counter and did not move. Her whole body was screaming at her to do something, to ask more questions, to call Dot over, to grab her phone, to run out the back door, to do literally anything other than stand here and pretend to have a conversation with a stranger, while somewhere behind her, a man in a grey jacket sat over a plate of food and watched her. He had no intention, he had already decided was his, like something key all. But Cole's eyes were calm, not falsely calm, not the calm of someone pretending to be brave, the calm of someone who had been in situations where calm was the only tool left and had earned to access it the same way other people access breathing. Without thinking about it, without effort, just reaching for it and finding it there. And something about that, something about the absolute absence of panic, it was more convincing than anything he could have said. Maya Chen picked up the coffee pot. She put a smile on her face. She turned and walked toward table 4 like she had somewhere to be. And as she passed Cole on her way, she said it, without looking down, without breaking stride, so quietly it barely disturbed the air between them. Okay, Dad. She hated how easily it came out. She hated what it said about her. That a word she had never said to anyone could sit so naturally in her mouth. That the shape of it felt familiar in a way she hadn't earned and couldn't explain. That some part of her, a guarded part, she usually kept locked behind 3 shifts in a row and that never filled fast enough, had been waiting a long time to say it to someone. WAP. View. And it had chosen now. It had chosen him. Cole didn't move. He didn't smile. He lifted his coffee mug with one hand and turned just slightly on the stool, angling himself so that his back was no longer fully to the corner booth. and he watched the room with the steady, patient, dangerous attention of a man who had done this before, and was doing the math on how much time they had before it stopped being math and started being something else. Maya refilled table 4. She smiled at Mrs. Eleanor Briggs, who beamed back at her. She checked in with Gerald. She moved through the diner on autopilot. Her body performing the job her mind had temporarily vacated, and every time her path brought her near the front of the room, she was aware, not by looking, but by feel, the way you feel the sun on your back without turning toward it, of Cole Maddox sitting at that counter. Turning car, you foof, watching the man in grey. Who was watching her? The diner kept moving. The smell of fresh biscuits was everywhere. The television in the corner ran its silent weather forecast. Someone at table 6 laughed at something, and Maya Chen moved between tables with a coffee pot in her hand and a smile on her face, and the word "Dad" still warm in her chest, like something Shai hadn't known she was missing until the moment it was there. She went to the kitchen, passed through to pick up an order, and Ray said something about the weekend, and she said, "Ah-ha," and grabbed the plates and went back out. And as she set the plates down at table 7, she let herself take one glance. Casual, sideways, the way you glance at something when you're pretending you're not looking. Toward the corner booth. The man in grey had moved. Not much, just enough. He was sitting slightly differently than before, turned a few degrees. And his hands were no longer around the orange juice glass. They were below the table. And his eyes were not on his food. His eyes tracked her across the room with a slow, certain patience of something that has already decided to wait because it knows how this Maya set down the last plate. She straightened up. She walked back toward the counter, each step measured, each breath rate deliberate. And she stopped in front of Cole and spoke without lifting her voice above the ambient noise of the diner. "He moved," she said. "I know," Cole said. His hands shifted under the counter. "I know. Should I be?" She stopped, pressed her lips together. "Don't finish that sentence," Cole said. "Just stand here and act like I'm telling you something funny." Maya laughed. It came out more real than she expected. Cole didn't laugh with her, but his expression softened in a way that looked to anyone who glanced over father, looking at a daughter he hadn't seen in a while and was genuinely glad to be sitting next to. "How many other people are in this diner right now?" he said. "Still low, still even. Who are here every Thursday?" Maya thought. Most of them. Gerald, the Delaney brothers, Mrs. Briggs, Ray's in the kitchen, Dot's at the register, and him. Never seen him before? Cole set his mug down slowly. He looked straight ahead at the coffee machine on the back wall. "That's what I thought. What does that mean?" "It means he picked this place because he knew your routine. He knew you'd be here. He's been watching you long enough to know your schedule, your route, your shift. This wasn't random." The diner kept moving. Someone laughed at table 6. The television in the corner ran its silent forecast. The smell of fresh biscuits was everywhere, warm and ordinary and indifferent to everything happening at the counter. Stood still. Maya stood very still. "Why me?" she said. Cole was quiet for a moment, long enough that she thought he wasn't going to answer. "That," he said, "is the question we need to keep you alive long enough to answer." Maya didn't move right away. She stood at the counter with both hands flat on the surface and told herself to breathe. And breathing felt like the hardest thing she had ever been asked to do. Not because she was going to cry, not because she was going to fall apart, but because the breath kept catching somewhere just below her collarbone, like her body had decided that the air in this room was no longer entirely entirely safe to take in. Cole didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on the coffee machine and spoke like a man reading the weather. I need you to do something for me, and I need you to do it right now, okay? Go take an order from that family at table 2. Take your time. Smile at the kids. Look like you belong here and everything is normal. And on your way back, walk close enough to the corner booth that you can tell me exactly what he's doing with his hands under the table. You want me to walk closer to him? I want you to walk past him like you'd walk past anyone. Don't stop. Don't look directly. Just get close enough to see. Maya's mouth went dry. And if he says something to me, he won't, Cole said. Not yet. He's not ready yet. She didn't ask what not ready yet meant. She wasn't sure she wanted to know. She picked up her notepad, she straightened her apron, and she walked toward table 2 like her life was not currently sitting on the edge of something she could not name. The family at table 2 were the Garfields, Tom and Sandra, and their 2 boys, Marcus, who was 8, and Tyler, who was 6. They came in every other Thursday when Sandra didn't feel like cooking breakfast before Tom's shift at the grain elevator. Maya knew them. She liked them. She liked the way Tom always let the boys order their own food and then quietly adjusted the portions, so they didn't end up with 4 pancakes each when they'd only eat 1.5. She liked the way Sandra held her coffee mug with both hands like it was something precious. Maya, Sandra said, smiling. Rough morning, you look a little pale. Long week, Maya said. And the smile she put on her face was the best one she owned. What can I get you guys? She wrote down their order. Tyler changed his mind twice. Marcus wanted to know if the cook could make the pancakes into the shape of a dog. Maya said she would ask. She laughed at the right moment. She stood there at that table for 2 minutes and 40 seconds and was, by every external measure, completely fine. On her way back to the kitchen pass-through, she walked the long way around, past the corner booth. She didn't look. She kept her eyes on the notepad like she was reviewing the order. But she slowed her pace just enough to register what was beside her without making it obvious she was registering anything at all. And what she felt, because she did not look directly, was a man with his right hand resting on his thigh and his left hand below the table. Low, angled inward, toward the inside of his jacket, she clipped the ticket at the kitchen window. She went back to the counter. Right hand on his leg, she said, low and fast. Without sitting down, without stopping, left hand inside his jacket. He's holding something. Cole's jaw moved once. That was the only sign. You're sure it was inside the jacket? Not just resting on his waist. Inside, she said. Like he was keeping his hand warm, except it's not cold in here. No, Cole said. It's not. He picked up his coffee mug, set it down again, and for a moment, just a moment, something shifted behind his eyes. Not fear, not panic. The kind of recalibration a person does when the situation has confirmed what they suspected, and now the question is not whether, but when. He stood up from the stool. "I'm going to come around behind the counter," he said quietly, "and I'm going to hug you. And you're going to hug me back like I'm the best thing you've seen all week. You think you can do that?" Maya looked at him for one full second. "Are you a father?" Cole said nothing for long enough that the silence became its own kind of answer. Then he said, "I was." She didn't ask anything else. He moved around the end of the counter, unhurried, the way a man moves when he belongs somewhere and has nothing to hide. And he put his arm around Maya's shoulders, and she leaned into it. Not because she decided to, not because she thought it through, but because something in her body recognized the shape of it, the solidness of it, and moved toward it the way you move toward warmth without making a choice. "Hey, baby girl," he said, loud enough for the room to carry it, his voice completely transformed. Still low, but easy now, almost warm. "You eat anything today?" "I had toast," she said, and the words came out naturally. And she hated how naturally they came out. "Toast," he said, like it was a personal offense. "I drive 4 hours and my daughter's surviving on toast." Dot Hargrove looked over from the register. She caught Maya's eye with an expression that said, "Finally, he comes to see you," then went back to the register tape, satisfied. Cole kept his arm on Maya's shoulder. From where he was standing, his back was to the wall, and the corner booth was in his direct line of sight. He was not looking at the man in gray, but he was watching him in the way certain people watch things through peripheral vision, through some additional sense that doesn't have a name, through the accumulated instinct of a man who had spent years learning how to pay attention to the right things, ilani atating payu right times. But he just shifted, Cole murmured, his mouth barely moving, his expression unchanging. "He saw us, and he doesn't like it." Maya laughed. She didn't know why. But it was real enough that Dot looked over again and smiled too. And the family at table 6 glanced across with the pleasant detachment of people who enjoy being adjacent to happiness that isn't their responsibility. In the corner booth, the man in gray did not smile. He looked at his plate like he was noticing for the first time that he hadn't eaten anything. He picked up his fork. He put it down again. His left hand stayed where it was. "He knows something changed," Maya said quietly, still smiling. "He's deciding," Cole said. "Deciding what? Whether I'm a problem." And then, before Cole could say anything else, Maya saw it. Mrs. Eleanor Briggs was gathering her things in the second booth, patting her purse, folding her napkin, the way she always did before she left. In 2 minutes, she would stand up and make her slow way toward the door. And her slow way toward the door went directly past the corner booth. Maya didn't think about it. She didn't consult Cole. She didn't weigh the options. She just moved. She crossed to Mrs. Briggs's booth, touched the old woman's hand gently and said, "Let me walk you out, Mrs. Briggs. It's a little slippery by the door this morning." It wasn't slippery by the door. Mrs. Briggs probably knew that. But she looked up at Maya with those warm eyes and said, "Well, aren't you sweet?" And let Maya take her arm and walk her toward the exit along the far wall, away from the core booth, away from the man in gray, away from everything that was about to happen. "God bless you, honey," Mrs. Briggs said at the door, the way she said it every Thursday. And she pressed Maya's hand between both of hers the way she always did. Maya felt it more today than she ever had, the warmth of those old hands, the simple and unconditional goodwill of a woman who asked nothing from the world except blueberry pancakes and a clean table, and someone who smiled back when she smiled first. "You come back next week," Maya said. "Lord willing," Mrs. Briggs said, and she walked out into the ordinary Kansas morning. Maya stood at the door for one breath, just one. Then she turned and walked back toward the counter. And as she passed the coffee station, she glanced toward Cole, who had not moved except to set his empty mug down and angle his stool very slightly clockwise. He did not look at her, but he raised 2 fingers off the counter, barely, just a flicker. She understood it without knowing how. Pay attention. Something is shifting. 30 seconds later, the man in gray pushed his plate to the center of the table. Not back to the edge, the way you push a plate when you're done. To the center, with purpose, clearing space in front of him. His left hand came up from under the table and rested on the surface. His right hand followed. He sat back slightly. And he looked at Maya with the patient and expectant expression of a man who has decided on something. Maya's feet stopped. She was standing between table 3 and table 4, and her feet simply stopped moving. The coffee pot was in her hand. The handle was warm. She could feel every individual finger wrapped around it, could feel her pulse in each of them. And she knew with a certainty that bypassed logic and landed directly in her bones that the 10 minutes Cole had given her were up. Cole was already off the stool. He moved without hurry, smooth, direct, efficient, the way water moves through a space, finding the fastest path without making noise about it. He crossed the diner floor in a line that looked to anyone watching like a man heading toward the register or toward the bathroom hallway. He was not heading toward the bathroom. He was moving so that when the man in gray stood up, he would not have a clear path to Maya. The man in gray noticed. Something changed in his posture. A tightening, a recalibration. His eyes moved from Maya to Cole and back, and in that movement, Maya saw for the first time, clearly stripped of the ambiguity she'd been hiding behind all morning, what this man actually was. It wasn't the gray jacket. It wasn't the untouched food or the hand that had stayed beneath the table for the better part of an hour. It was the way his eyes moved. Not like a customer, not like someone looking around a diner, like someone conducting an assessment, like someone for whom every person in this room was either an obstacle or a resource, a source, and nothing else. She had seen that look before. She didn't remember where. She didn't remember when, but something in her body remembered it. Had catalogued it years ago in the wordless archive that the body keeps of things too terrible to hold in the conscious mind. And now it was surfacing. And she understood something she had never been able to put into words before. She had been looked at this way before. Maybe not by this man, but by someone. And she had gotten away. And she had spent 7 years in this small Kansas town not understanding why she couldn't shake the feeling that she was always waiting for something bad to catch up with her. It just hadn't counted on Cole Maddox being between her and it when it arrived. "Sir." Cole's voice was level. He wasn't looking at the man in grey directly. He was angled toward him, the way you stand when you want someone to know you're aware of them without making the room aware of you. "You need anything?" The man in grey looked at him. "I'm fine." "You haven't eaten," Cole said. "Food's getting cold." "A beat. Mind your business." "I'm trying to," Cole said pleasantly. Hard to do when a man sits across the room making my daughter uncomfortable for an hour. The room didn't change. People kept eating. The television kept running its silent forecast. But something moved through the air between Cole and the man in grey. Something invisible and electric. A charge that preceded impact, the way the air changes before lightning. "Your daughter," the man in grey said, and the way he said it made Maya's stomach turn. Flat, knowing, disbelieving. "That's right," Cole said. "Funny," the man said. "She doesn't look like she knows you. She's been waitressing since 6 in the morning. Third shift in 3 days. She doesn't look like she knows anybody." Cole's voice didn't change, not 1 degree. "You planning to eat or not?" The man in grey looked at Maya. She looked back at him. She didn't look away. She didn't know where the steadiness came from. She didn't ask, and then the man reached into his jacket. Cole moved. Not toward him, to the side, 1 step, repositioning. And everyone in the diner who wasn't paying attention still wasn't paying attention. Because no one in that room had any reason to be watching 2 men have a quiet conversation. 2 men have a quiet conversation near the back booth. The man pulled out a phone. Just a phone. He set it on the table. He looked at the screen, and for 1 second, the tension in the room, which had existed only in the triangle between Cole, the man in grey, and Maya, dropped by half. Cole didn't relax. Maya noticed that. He didn't move back toward the counter. He didn't change his posture or his expression. "Something funny about that phone?" Maya asked. The words came out before she chose them. She almost clapped her hand over her mouth. The man in grey looked at her, and this time his expression changed in a way she wished she hadn't seen. He smiled. Not a real smile, the kind of smile that has studied the shape of real smiles and reproduced it accurately without understanding the interior experience that produces one. Teeth and curve of lip and nothing at all behind the eyes. "Just checking the time," he said. Cole looked at the phone. Maya couldn't read his expression from where she was standing, but she saw his right hand, hanging loose at his side, curl once briefly into a fist, and then release. "You should eat something," Cole said. "Food's good here." He walked back toward the counter. He didn't sit down. He stood with his back to the coffee machine and his eyes on the corner booth. And when Maya came and stood beside him, he spoke in a voice lower than she'd heard him use yet. "The phone," he said. "Did you see what was on the screen?" "No, I did." He was quiet for a moment. "It was a photograph of you outside this diner, taken from across the street, yesterday or the day before." The diner kept moving. The Garfield boys argued about something at table 2. Gerald Marsh called for a refill. The smell of bacon grease and fresh biscuits was everywhere, warm and ordinary and completely indifferent. Maya stood at the counter of the diner she had worked in for 3 years and understood for the first time, without the pastime, fully, without the buffer of disbelief, that the thing Cole had told her was true. She had not been chosen by accident. She had been chosen the way a destination is chosen. Deliberately, after research, after planning. After someone somewhere had looked at her life and its particular shape, its particular loneliness, its particular lack of anyone who would notice first if she went missing, and decided that the absence of witnesses was not a liability. It was an asset. Who, she said. The word came out very small. Cole didn't answer right away. Cold answer right away. He was watching the corner booth where the man in grey had put the phone back in his jacket and picked up his fork and was finally, at last, beginning to eat his breakfast. With the unhurried composure of a man who has received the information he came for and is simply waiting now for the appointed time. That, Cole said, is what I'm afraid we're about to find out. And in the corner booth, the man in grey looked up once, not at Cole, not at the room, directly at Maya, and the smile from before was gone. What replaced it was worse patience. Absolute, settled, unrushed patience. The expression of a man who believes he has already won and is simply waiting for the rest of reality to catch up to the conclusion he reached before he ever walked through the door. The diner kept thinning. Table 7 paid and left. The Delaney brothers followed a few minutes later, and each table that emptied felt to Maya like a subtraction of cover. Like the room was slowly reducing itself down to the three of them. Cole noticed it too. She could tell by the slight shift in his breathing. "Dot going to the back anytime soon?" he asked. Maya looked toward the register. Dot was already reaching under the counter for the supply clipboard she used for her mid-morning inventory check. Same time every Thursday. Never varying. Reliable as the weather rotation on that silent television. 5 minutes, Maya said. She goes to the stockroom, usually 20 minutes. Cole nodded once. And Ray? He'll be cleaning the flat top once the breakfast orders stop coming in. He puts his headphones on when he does it. Can't hear anything when he's got those in. Can't hear anything. He's got... Cole processed this without expression. But Maya felt the weight of what it meant settle over both of them at exactly the same time. The diner was about to become quieter and more isolated than it had been all morning. And the man in the corner booth, with his untouched food and his photograph and his terrible patience, had almost certainly known that. Pop had factored it in, had planned for it. "He's going to move soon," Cole said. "How do you know?" "Because he's been here over an hour. Because the room is emptying. Because whatever window he gave himself for this, it's closing." Cole straightened up from the counter. His voice dropped to almost nothing. "I need you to stay behind the counter. Whatever happens, you do not come around from behind it. You hear me? No matter what happens, you stay behind the counter." Maya looked at him. "Okay, say it back." "I stay behind the counter. Whatever happens." He held her eyes for one more second. Then he turned and walked, loose and unhurt, toward the corner booth. Maya's breath locked in her chest. She watched him cross the floor. She watched the man in grey register his approach, watched something change in the man's posture, not fear, not retreat, a kind of coiling, a gathering of intention, the way a body organizes itself just before it acts. Cole pulled out the chair across from the man in grey and sat down. He did not ask permission. He did not announce himself. He simply sat the way a man sits at a table he owns. and he placed both hands flat on the surface between them and said something Maya could not hear. For approximately 40 seconds, the two of them sat across from each other in the corner booth of Millfield Diner and spoke in voices too low to carry. Then the man in grey smiled. Not the studied imitation from before. Something different. Something that came from a place of genuine amusement, of someone who has just had a suspicion confirmed in a way they find entertaining. He said something. One sentence. Maybe two. Cole's hands flat on the table, pressed down once. Hard, brief. Like someone absorbing a blow without letting it show in their face. And then it happened. Later, Maya would not be entirely sure of the sequence, because it happened in the compressed, disorienting way that sudden violence always happens. Not slow motion the way films made it seem, but faster than processing, faster than comprehension, the body catching up to events only after they were already over. There was a sound, sharp and hard and wrong, a chair scraping, something hitting the floor, heavy and solid, and the sound of it sent a spike of cold through Maya's chest before her brain had categorized what it was. Gerald Marsh shouted something from table 4. One of the remaining customers at table 6 stood up so fast her chair went back. Someone near the door made a sound that was not quite a scream, but was reaching toward one. Cole was standing. The man in grey was not. He was on the floor beside the booth, face down, one arm pinned behind his back in a grip that looked it had been applied with the precise and practiced ease of someone who has done this particular thing many times and knows exactly how much pressure is enough and how much is too much. Cole's knee was in the center of the man's back, and Cole's breathing was completely even. The object that had hit the floor, a knife short-bladed, the kind designed to be hidden easily, lay 18 inches from the man's outstretched hand. The whole thing had taken 4 seconds, maybe 5. "Everybody stay where you are," Cole said. His voice was not raised. It carried anyway. "It's over. Everyone stay seated. Stay calm. This man is not going to hurt anyone." Gerald Marsh, who was 71 years old and had served 2 tours in Vietnam, sat back down. Assessed the situation with the eyes of a man who had seen actual combat and said, "Son, you need me to call somebody?" "Yes, sir," Cole said. "Call 911. Tell them there's a man down at Millfield Diner and we need a sheriff's unit. Tell them no one is injured." Gerald already had his phone out. Maya had come around from behind the counter. She was standing in the middle of the floor and she did not remember walking there. She was still holding the coffee pot, and her hands, for the first time all morning, were shaking. "Maya," Cole's voice was even, behind the counter. "Now." She went back. She set the coffee pot down because she was going to drop it. She pressed both palms flat on the counter surface and breathed and told herself it was over. She almost believed it. The man in grey was speaking. His voice was muffled because his face was turned against the floor, but the words were clear enough. "You think it's just me?" Cole said nothing. "You think I came alone?" The man's voice was not afraid. That was the thing that made Maya's stomach drop. It wasn't defiant either, the way someone talks when they're trying to save face. It was informational, the tone of someone sharing a fact. Calm, unhurried, almost conversational. You stopped one person. Count the windows. Cole's head came up. The movement was small and fast and completely controlled. But Maya saw it. The quarter-second reorientation. The rapid sweep of his gaze toward the front of the diner, toward the large glass windows that faced the street. Maya followed his eyes without thinking. There was a car on the other side of the street, dark-colored, four-door, engine running. She could see the exhaust hanging in the cool morning air. It had not been there when she started her shift. She was certain of that. The way you're certain of something you didn't know you'd noticed until it becomes relevant. Someone was in that car, the driver, and she looked harder. A second silhouette in the back seat, still watching. Cole, she said, I see it. There are two people in that car. I see it, he said. The man on the floor laughed. It was the worst sound she had heard all morning, and the morning had not been short on bad sounds. Girls like her disappear every day, he said. You know how this works. You stop one, there's always another one waiting. Always will be. Cole pressed his knee down once, briefly. The man stopped laughing. But the information he had delivered stayed in the room, filling the air between the booths and the counter, and the kitchen passed through, and the silent television running its endless weather forecast. The smite, who sent you? Cole said. Silence. Who's in the car? More silence. Then, with genuine amusement in his voice, even from the floor, he said, someone who's very patient. Dot Hargrove appeared from the back hallway with her clipboard in one hand. She took in the scene in front of her with the composure of a woman who had seen 25 years of everything life ein time enyam mindem brought through a diner door. And she said, Lord have mercy, Maya. Are you hurt? Maya said. Gerald called 911, Gerald said from table 4. Ray Dot called toward the kitchen. Ray, put those headphones down and come out here. Right now. Ray appeared at the pass-through with an expression of profound confusion, a spatula in one hand. Come out here and stand by that side door, Dot said, pointing toward the door that opened onto the alley. Don't let anybody in from outside. Ray looked at the man on the floor. Looked at Cole. Looked at Dot, and then did exactly what he was told, because Dot Hargrove had a way of delivering instructions that made compliance feel like the only reasonable option on the table. Cole looked at Maya. The car is still there. I know, the driver hasn't moved. I know, they're waiting, Cole said. Waiting to see if he comes back out or if he doesn't. Maya looked at the windows. The car had not moved. She could see the passenger silhouette in the back seat. The stillness of it, the watchful quality of it. The same terrible, patient quality she had seen on the man in Gray's face before Cole put him on the floor. What do they do if he doesn't come out? She said. Cole held her gaze. They adapt. That means they come in, or they wait for us to come out. He shifted his weight. Which means we need to make a decision before the sheriff's unit gets here. Because once official people arrive, this gets complicated in ways we don't want. Complicated how? A lot of questions, Cole said, which takes time. And in that time, the people in that car will know exactly what's happening, and they will plan accordingly. We lose whatever advantage we have right now. So, what do we do? He looked toward the windows, looked back at her, and she watched him work through something behind his eyes. Not hesitation, not uncertainty. The rapid sequential logic of a man mapping out paths and their consequences, selecting the one with the least damage on the other side of it. "You trust me?" he said. It was a strange question for a man she'd known for less than 2 hours, but the answer she found was not strange at all. It was right there, already formed, waiting to be spoken. "Yes," she said. He nodded once, "Then here's what we're going to do." He looked at Dot. "How long until the sheriff's unit?" 10 minutes, Gerald said, still holding his phone. Dispatch said 10 minutes. "Good." Cole looked down at the man on the floor. "You're going to stay exactly where you are. And when the deputies get here, you're going to tell them you came in here intending to rob the place and it went wrong. That's the story. You understand?" The man said nothing. "The alternative," Cole said very quietly, "is that I tell them exactly what I saw on that phone. And then this gets a lot more complicated for a lot more people than just you." A pause. "So, do you understand?" A long silence, then, barely audible. "Yeah, good." Cole stood up. He stepped back from the man, who stayed on the floor. Not because Cole was holding him there anymore, but because something in the calculus of the situation had changed. And the man on the floor was smart enough to understand it. Cole crossed to the counter. He leaned close to Maya and spoke fast and low. "In about 4 minutes, I need you to walk out the front door with me. Not run, walk. Like we're leaving for lunch. Like everything is fine. The people in that car are going to see us come out, and they're going to have to make a decision. Follow us or come in here and try to salvage a situation that's already gone wrong. And if they follow us, then I know where they are. And if they come in here instead, they won't. Not with Dot calling this in and Gerald on his phone and Ray at that door. Too much visibility, too many witnesses." He looked at her steadily. "They want you somewhere quiet, Maya. Somewhere no one is looking. They will not make a scene in a diner full of people in broad daylight with the sheriff 4 minutes out." Maya looked at the knife still lying on the floor a foot from her left shoe. Such an ordinary-looking thing, such a small, terrible, ordinary object. "He said girls like me disappear every day," she said. "Yes," Cole said. "Is that true?" He didn't soften it. "Yes." She absorbed that. It sat in her chest like something swallowed wrong. Something, find that had gone down and settled in a place it was not supposed to settle. And she knew it would stay there. That she would be carrying this particular weight in this particular place for a long time after today. "Why didn't anyone help them?" she said. The words came out rough-edged. Not angry, something rawer than angry. Cole was quiet for a moment. "Because no one knew," he said. "Because nobody was in the right place at the right time. Because the men who do this are very good at making sure of that." His jaw tightened. "I wasn't there in time once, a long time ago. I have been paying that back ever since." Maya looked at him. Really looked. Past the jacket and the quiet and the controlled precision of everything he did. And she saw for the first time what he actually was. Not a threat, not a savior. A man with a wound that had never closed. A man who had turned the worst thing that ever happened to him into a reason to keep going. Into a reason to walk into diners and sit at counters and watch the room. Into a reason to call himself dad to a woman he didn't know. Gerald Marsh said from table 4, sheriff's about 3 minutes out. Cole looked at Maya. You ready? She reached behind her and untied her apron. She folded it twice and set it on the counter. She looked at Dot, who was watching her with an expression that was equal parts fear, trust, and the particular kind of fierce maternal love that certain women extend without conditions, or explanations. I'll call you, Maya said. You better, Dot said. Her voice was completely steady. Her hands were not. Maya walked around the counter. She stood beside Cole. She did not look at the man on the floor because she understood with some new instinct she had not possessed 2 hours ago that you did not give men like that any more of your attention than was strictly necessary to survive them. Fine. Cole walked toward the door. Maya walked beside him. He pushed it open. The morning air hit her face, cool and ordinary. Smelling of cut grass from somewhere nearby and exhaust from the street and the particular nothings smell of a small Kansas town that doesn't know yet what is passing through it. Don't look back, Cole said, his voice barely above a breath. Don't look at the car. Just walk. She walked. And behind them, from inside the diner, she heard the distant approaching wail of a sheriff's siren. Still 2 minutes out. Still on the other side of town. Coming, but not here yet. Not yet. And in the car across the street, nobody moved. Nobody got out. Nobody followed. For now, they walked half a block before Cole spoke. My bike is on the next street over, he said. We're not taking it. Maya kept pace beside him. Her shoes were still the ones she wore for 12-hour shifts. Soft, practical, not made for anything except standing on linoleum for hours at a time. She was still wearing her uniform. She had left her purse in her locker in the back of the diner. She had her phone in her apron pocket, which she'd grabbed without thinking when she untied it. And that was the sum total of everything she had with her. Then how are we? My truck, he said. 2 blocks east. I parked it when I came in this morning. Didn't want the bike visible from the diner. She absorbed that. You planned for this. I planned for contingencies, he said. There's a difference. What's the difference? Planning means you know what's going to happen. Contingencies means you know things might go wrong and you decide in advance how wrong you're willing to let them get. He glanced sideways at her. Quick! Assessing. You doing okay? Tell me the truth. I don't know, she said. And that was the truth. Every version of okay she had access to was currently unavailable, and she didn't know what was left in its place. Your hands stopped shaking, he said. That's adrenaline cycling out. You might feel it again in a few minutes. That's normal. Is it? Yeah, he said. It is. They turned the corner. Cole walked slightly ahead and to her left, which put him between her and the street. She didn't think he had done that consciously. It felt more like the body memory of a man who had been in the habit of putting himself between danger and someone else for so long that the behavior had become structural, had built itself into the way he moved through the world. She didn't say anything about it, but she noticed. His truck was where he said it was, dark blue, older. The kind of vehicle that had been driven hard over a lot of years and wore it honestly. A thin layer of road dust on the hood. A crack in the passenger side mirror repaired with electrical tape that had held. He unlocked it with a key. Not a fob. She got in. He got in. He did not start it immediately. He looked in the rearview mirror for 11 seconds. She counted. "The car from across the street," she said. "Not behind us yet," he said. But they made a decision the second we walked out that door. What decision? Whether to follow us or cut their losses. He started the truck. We're about to find out which one they picked. He pulled out into the street. He drove at exactly the speed limit. Not slower, not faster. And Maya sat in the passenger seat and watched the side mirror and told herself she was not going to panic. Told herself that panic was a choice and she was not going to make it. She mostly believed herself. 2 blocks passed. 3. She checked the mirror after each one. "I don't see them," she said. "I do," he said. She looked again and then she saw it. The dark 4-door. Far back. Far enough that it would be invisible to someone who wasn't looking for it specifically. Maintaining a distance calculated to be unremarkable. Following the speed of traffic. Following them. "Okay," she said. The word came out very quietly. "Don't look at the mirror again," Cole said. "Let me handle it. I need you to talk to me." "Talk to you about what?" "About yourself. Where you grew up. How long you've been in Millfield. Who knows you here?" She looked at him. "Why?" "Because I need to understand the shape of your life, to understand how they found you." He paused. "And because you talking keeps you from spiraling." Maya pressed her hands flat on her thighs. "Foster system," she said. 3 different homes. Iowa, then Nebraska, then here. I aged out at 18 and I stayed because I didn't have anywhere else to go. Family, none. Friends outside of work. She thought about it honestly. Gerald comes in every week, we talk. A few people I see at the grocery store. She stopped. "I know what that sounds like." "It doesn't sound like anything except a life," Cole said.
"How long?"
3 years. Same apartment the whole time. Same route to work. "It's 2 blocks. There's only one route." He nodded slowly. The truck moved through the outskirts of town, the buildings thinning. The road opening up ahead of them into the flat Kansas landscape that stretched in every direction like something indifferent to human events. Cole took a right at a junction that led away from town without signaling first. Maya watched the mirror. After 15 seconds, she saw the dark car take the same turn. Farther back now, adjusting. "They're still there," she said. "Yeah," he said, his voice entirely I know. "They're not hiding anymore." "No," he said, "they're not." That shift, the move from concealment to open pursuit, landed in Maya's chest like something physical. There was a particular quality to being followed that she understood now in a way she hadn't this morning. It was not the visibility, it was the intention behind it. The understanding that the person behind you had assigned you a role in a story you hadn't consented to and intended to make that role permanent. "Cole," she said, "who are these people?" He was quiet for a moment, long enough that she knew he wasn't deciding whether to answer. But how? How much? In what order? "There are people," he said carefully, "who look for women with no safety net, no family. No one who will notice immediately if they're gone. No one who will make noise. They've been doing it a long time, long enough to be very good at it. They do their research, they watch, they're patient." The man in gray said, "Girls like me disappear every day," she said. He wasn't wrong. The sentence hit her clean and hard. no softening around the edges. She appreciated that. She had spent most of her adult life around people who softened difficult things until they were shapeless and unrecognizable. She had always preferred the hard, clear shape of true things even when they hurt. "They're getting closer," she said, checking her mirror. "I know," Cole said. "They've decided." "Decided what?" "That waiting isn't an option anymore. The man in the diner is either in custody or he's not, but either way he's done for today. They know that. So now they have two choices. Break off and regroup, or finish it." "Finish it," Maya said. The phrase was bloodless and specific, and she hated it. Which one are they going to pick? Cole looked in the rearview mirror one more time. Something in his expression settled. Not into calm, into decision. The same quality she had watched move across his face in the diner before he cafard the floor, the corner, before he crossed the floor toward the corner booth. The quality of a man who has stopped calculating and started moving. "Pull your seatbelt tight," he said. She pulled it tight. He turned off the main road onto a county road she hadn't known was there. Unpaved, straight, cutting through flat, open farmland. The kind of road you only know about if you've driven it before. He had driven it before. She was certain of that. He had planned for contingencies. And this road was one of them. The dark car turned after them. It was closer now. Not hiding, not maintaining distance, coming. "There's a green canvas bag behind my seat," Cole said. "Unzip the front pocket, take out what's inside and hold it." Maya reached back, found the bag, unzipped the front pocket. Her hand closed around a small police scanner, older model. She pulled it out. "Turn it on," he said. "Dial on the left. Turn it until you hear voices." She turned it on. Static. She dialed slowly. A voice crackled through. "Dispatch. County frequency. A woman reading off codes and intersections in the measured rhythm of someone managing multiple situations at once." "Keep listening," Cole said. "Tell me if you hear anything about this road." She listened. Cole drove. The car behind them had closed the distance to what she guessed was a quarter mile. "Still coming." "Cole," she said. "Yeah." "If they catch us on this road, they won't. But if they won't," he said again. And the certainty in his voice was not bravado. It was the certainty of a man who had already decided on the outcome and was in the process of making it true. He slowed the truck. Not gradually, decisively. He pulled it to the right edge of the road and stopped. Maya's breath caught. "What are you doing?" "Choosing the ground," he said simply. He put the truck in park. He opened his door. "Cole." He looked at her directly. One moment held. "No matter what you hear, you stay in this truck. You keep that door locked. You keep listening to that scanner. You do not get out. You understand me? You can't." Maya, her name in his mouth, firm and quiet. "I need you to trust me one more time. Just one more time. Can you do that?" She looked at him. She thought about Sarah, 23 years old, a waitress. No family. She thought about 7 years of a man driving roads like this one and arriving too late. She thought about the fact that this man, this stranger, had called himself her father to protect her and had meant it in every way that mattered. In every way that mattered. "Yes," she said. He got out of the truck. He walked to the center of the road, and he stood there. And he waited. The dark car came toward him and slowed and stopped. and for a moment the road held that terrible charged silence of two forces that have finally closed the distance between them and are deciding what happens next. The passenger door opened. A man got out, taller than Gray had been, younger. He walked toward Cole with his hands visible, his posture the kind of falsely relaxed, that rot dots that people perform when they want to look unthreatening and aren't. Maya put her hand on the door handle. She did not open it. The man stopped 6 feet from Cole and said something she couldn't hear through the glass. Cole answered. The man said something else, and his right hand moved toward the inside of his jacket. Maya's whole body clenched. Her fingers went white on the door handle. Cole moved first. In that same compressed, efficient, zero-wasted motion way he had moved in the diner. Not fast in the way that looked fast. Fast in the way that was simply faster than the other person had accounted for. He closed the distance before the man's hand had finished its movement. And what followed was brief and decisive and ended with the man on the road beside his car and Cole standing over him and the driver still behind the wheel. Both hands raised where Cole could see them through the windshield. Cole looked toward the truck. He raised one hand, steady, deliberate. Stay, she stayed. He crouched down over the man on the road and spoke. She could see the man's mouth moving, could see the body language shift from resistance to something else. Something more like the capitulation that comes not from fear of pain's down, that the situation has closed around you. And there is Mama. And there is only one exit left. Cole stood. He reached into the car, the driver flinching back with hands still raised, and took something from the center console. He looked at it, put it in his jacket pocket, said something to the driver. The driver nodded. Cole came back to the truck. He got in. He sat for a moment before he spoke. "It's done," he said. Maya let go of the door handle. She looked at her hand. There were red marks on her palm where the handle had pressed, and then it happened. The shaking she had held back all morning, through every table and every refill and every smile she had put on her face while a man with a knife watched her from a corner booth. Through the walk out the front door, far in Pineown County door, and the drive down the county road, and every single second of the past 2 hours finally arrived. Not in her hands this time, not visible to anyone looking. It moved through her in a wave that started somewhere in the center of her chest and spread outward, and she sat very still and let it move through her, because there was nothing else to do. Cole did not speak. He did not reach over. He did not offer words she didn't need. He just sat beside her in the quiet of the truck cab on the empty county road. And he let her have it, every second of it, without rushing it toward being over. Outside, the flat Kansas land stretched in every direction under an ordinary sky. The dark car sat motionless on the road behind them, the driver still inside, going nowhere. And Maya Chen, who had spent 7 years were a quiet life out of whatever materials were available, to a woman a truck she had never been in before, beside Manfred 9 for less safety net, beside a man she had known and know 3 hours. A woman, less it than channel. And for the first time all morning, she let herself shake. The house belonged to a man named Decker Walsh. Cole didn't offer more than that on the drive over. And Maya didn't push. She had learned in the past 3 hours that Cole Maddox gave information in the order he decided it was needed. And that order was almost always correct. And that pushing ahead of it produced nothing except a slight tightening around his heart that told her she was asking something he wasn't ready to answer yet. So she sat with the scanner murmuring between them and the locked phone on the seat and the flat Kansas road unrolling ahead of the truck. And she let the silence be what it was. The scanner had crackled once more before they left the county road. A male voice, clipped and official, unit responding on County Road 14. Reported disturbance. ETA 11 minutes. Gerald's call had made it out. 11 minutes, she had said. Cole had already been pulling back onto the road. The dark car behind them sat motionless. The driver had not followed, had not moved at all, just sat there on the county road while Cole drove away from it. And Maya watched it in the mirror until it was small and then smaller and then gone. 40 minutes later, Cole turned onto a gravel drive that wound through a stand of old trees and ended in front of a plane one story enough to have stopped trying to impress anyone. And he did stopped trying in high enough to through trying to impon. Decker Walsh opened the door before Cole knocked. He had heard the truck coming up the gravel drive from some considerable distance. Maya assumed. He was somewhere between 60 and 70, with the build of a man who had done physical work whole life and the eyes of someone who had seen enough of the world to have stopped being surprised by most of it. He looked at Cole. He looked at Maya. He stepped back from the door. "Coffee's on," he said. That was all. The inside of the house was plain and clean and smelled like wood and old books and something cooking low on the stove that Maya's body responded to before her mind registered it. Her stomach made a sound she hoped no one heard, reminding her she had eaten half a piece of dry toast approximately 6 hours ago and had since experienced a level of physical and emotional expenditure that have flattened most people, that would have flattened most people entirely. Decker set a bowl of soup in front of her without asking. She said, "Thank you." He said nothing and went back to the stove. And that was the most comfortable interaction she'd had with a stranger in years. Cole put the phone on the kitchen table. Decker looked at it the way a surgeon looks at a problem. Clinically, without drama. Already thinking ahead to the solution, he picked it up, turned it over, set it back down. Went to a drawer across the room, and came back with a small device Maya didn't recognize and connected it to the phone. Then he sat down and waited. "How long?" Cole said. 10 minutes. Maybe less. Decker glanced at Maya. "You the one from the diner?" "Yes," she said. "Cole find you in time?" She looked at Cole. "Yes." Decker nodded slowly, like this confirmed something he had already suspected. Then he said, "He usually does," and there was something in the way he said it. Not praise, not simple fact. Something in between. The kind of statement that carries the weight of knowing what usually means in this context. Knowing what the exceptions cost. Cole sat down across from Maya. He wrapped both hands around his coffee mug and looked at the phone and said nothing. And for a moment the three of them were simply three people in a kitchen waiting. And the normalcy of it, the soup, the coffee, the wood smell, the low sound of the burner, was so incongruous with the morning they had come from that Maya felt the disconnection between them physically, like standing between two weather systems. Einstein 2 weather systems. Cole stepped outside to check the truck, and the moment the door closed behind him, Maya looked at Decker. "How long has he been doing this?" she said. 7 years, Decker said. He didn't look up from the laptop screen. "Give or take." "It's the girl." Decker looked at her then. "Just briefly, since Sarah," he said. "Yes, but..." He said her name the way people say the names of the dead, not with ceremony, with a particular flatness that comes from having said it so many times that the grief has worn the word smooth, but never worn it away. "What was she to him?" Maya said. Decker was quiet for a moment. "Everything," he said, and then he went back to the screen. And Maya understood that was the only answer she was going to get, and that it was enough. Cole came back inside. He sat down. He looked at the phone. He looked at Maya. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Yeah, the network you said you've been tracking. How big is it?" "Big enough that the man in the diner wasn't the bottom of it," he said, "and the men in the car were only slightly higher than the bottom. There are always people above them. That's how it works. The people who do the visible work, the watching, the following, the actual taking, they're the expendable layer. They know that. They accept it because the money is there, and because the visible layer is almost never traced back to the layer above it." He turned the coffee mug once on the table. "Because the visible layer never has names. They have phone numbers, drop boxes, code words." "But the phone," Maya said. "But the phone," Cole said. The device Decker had connected made a small sound. Decker leaned forward, something in his posture shaked, but something in his posture, the physical equivalent of attention sharpening. "Well," he said. Cole stood up. He came around the table to look over Decker's shoulder. He looked at the screen for 5 seconds. Then he said very quietly, "How many?" 14 numbers, Decker said. "All active in the last 72 hours, and then he paused. "Cole, I see it. You recognize that prefix?" "Yes," Maya stood up. "What is it? What do you see?" Cole turned from the laptop, and what was in his face was not the controlled professional calm she had come to recognize over the past several hours. It was something more complicated than that. Something that looked like the expression a person wears when a long and painful suspicion, often confirmed, when the thing they have been afraid is finally final, reveals itself as exactly be certain of reveals itself as exactly what they feared. And the revelation is both worse than they hoped and better than not knowing. "One of these numbers," he said carefully, "belongs to someone who is not in the expendable layer." Maya waited. "Someone with a title," Decker said. "Someone with a county ID, a vehicle with a county seal on the door." The kitchen was very quiet. Maya sat back down. She put her hands flat on the table. "A county official. Not this county," Decker said. "A neighboring one." He turned the laptop slightly so she could see the screen. And on it was a contact entry, a name she did not recognize, a number, and a title, County Procurement Coordinator, Roy Stacher. A heavy-set man with a shaved head and a small office with the door always closed. The kind of man no one looked at twice. That was the point. It meant almost nothing on its own. It meant everything in context. "He's a middleman," Cole said. "Legitimate on the surface. Access to county records, property records, court records, welfare intake records." He knows which women come through the system. He knows who has family and who doesn't. He knows who would be noticed and who wouldn't. Maya heard her own breathing. He's the one who found you, Cole said. Or found the profile of Yuov, flagged it, passed it to the next layer. This is how they work, Maya. They don't find people by accident. They have someone on the inside of exactly the systems that are supposed to protect people like you. Welfare offices, court systems, foster care intake. He said the last one with a particular flatness that told her it wasn't the first time he'd arrived at that conclusion, and that it still landed the same way every time. They look for the gaps, he said. People who fell through and didn't get picked up again. Sarah, Maya said. Sarah was in the system, Cole said. Iowa City, different county. Different middleman, same network. The weight of it settled over the kitchen like something physical. Decca poured more coffee without being asked. Maya didn't touch hers. Cole, she said, tell me about her. About Sarah. Not what happened, just something real. Something about who she was. He was still for a long moment. Long enough that she thought he wasn't going to. And then he said, she made the best coffee I've ever had in my life. She had this terrible little machine, the kind you get at a gas station, and she made that coffee, and it was perfect every time. And I asked her once how. And she said, you just have to actually pay attention to what you're making. He stopped. His voice had stayed even the whole way through. His eyes had not. She paid attention to everything, he said. That was the thing about her. She noticed everything. Maya did not look away. She let him have the full weight of being seen in that moment. Because that was what you did for someone who had carried something alone for a very long time. You looked at it with them. You didn't look away. She sounds like someone worth knowing, Maya said. She was, he said. The afternoon light moved through the kitchen window and fell across the table between them. And Maya understood something she had not expected to understand today. That the people who save you are almost always people who could not save someone else. That the ones who step in are the ones who know what it costs not to. That protection, real protection, the kind that puts a body between you and a knife in a diner and stands in the middle of a county road and refuses to move. That kind of protection is almost always built from grief. She didn't say any of that out loud. Some things don't need to be said to be understood. What do you do with this? Maya said. The phone, the numbers, the name. Decca picked up his own phone from the counter. He had been holding it for the past several minutes, looking at it with the expression of a man waiting on confirmation of something he had already set in motion. I know someone, he said, not law enforcement, adjacent to it. Someone who can move this information to the right people in a way that doesn't get buried. It gets buried, Maya said. Sometimes, Decca said flatly. Not always. Depends on who's holding the shovel. Decca has contacts, Cole said. Federal level. People who have been building a case on a network for a long time and have been waiting for something solid enough to move on. And have been waiting for something solid enough to move on. He looked at the phone on the table. This is solid. Maya looked at it too. 14 numbers. A name with a county title. A thread that connected a corner booth in a small-town diner to something that had tenants she couldn't fully see and hadn't known existed this morning when she was lacing up her shoes and eating dry toast and thinking about nothing more consequential than whether Gerald Marsh's hot sauce would run out in hot sauce, possible cow out again. How many women, she said. Her voice was steady. She was surprised by that, and then she wasn't, because she had been steady all morning in ways she hadn't expected. And maybe that was its own kind of information about herself, about what she could hold, about what she was made of. How many women are in a situation like mine right now? Today, somewhere in this state, being watched, being photographed, having their lives evaluated for gaps and weaknesses by someone with a county ID and a legitimate parking space. Cole held her gaze. He didn't soften it. "More than you want to know," he said. "Tell me anyway." "I don't have a number," he said. "No one does. That's part of what makes it work. The disappearances get categorized differently. Missing persons, runaways. Women who left by choice. Women with no one filing a report and no one making noise." He set his hand flat on the table. "The FBI has a database, thousands of entries. A fraction of them get any real investigative hours because there are too many and too few people. And because women without family, without resources, without someone in a position to apply pressure are statistically deprioritized." He said it simply, without anger. "The way you say things you've made peace with. Not because they're acceptable, but because the anger burned through years ago, and what's left is determination. Teration. So they stay in a database," Maya said, "and the network stays operational. And someone in a county office somewhere looks at an intake form and picks up a phone." "Yes," Cole said. The kitchen held that for a moment. Then Maya said, "Except today." Cole looked at her. "Except today someone was in the right place." She met his eyes directly. "You were in the right place." He was quiet for a long moment. Something moved across his face, not the controlled professional distance, not the grief she'd seen earlier. Something more immediate than either of those. Something that looked like a man being reached by words aimed too precisely at the part of him he'd been protecting. "I was 3 days too late once," he said. His voice was very quiet. "I've been trying to get there before the 3 days ever since." "You did," she said. "Today you did." He looked down at the table. He didn't say anything, but his jaw moved once and his hands pressed down briefly like a man, steadying himself against something internal and invisible. Decker's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. Something in his posture eased a fraction. "It's moving," he said. "My contact has been waiting on something like this for 8 months." When I told him what was on the phone, he said. Decker paused. He almost smiled. It was small, partial. "But it was there," he said, finally. Maya looked between them. "What does that mean? What happens now?" "It means the 14 numbers go into a system that is not a county database," Decker said. "It means federal warrants get drafted. It means Roy Statcher's legitimate parking space is about to become the least safe place he's ever stood." He set his phone down on the table. "It means the thread gets pulled. And the network," Maya said, "doesn't unravel overnight." Cole said, "I want to be straight with you about that. This is one thread. The network has others. It doesn't end today." He held her gaze. But it gets smaller today, and smaller is not nothing. Smaller means some number of women who are going to be flagged and followed and photographed don't get flagged. Some number of men in grey jackets don't get dispatched. Some number of Thursday mornings in some number of small-town diners stay exactly what they're supposed to be. Cole's phone buzzed on the table. He looked at it. Something behind his eyes eased fractionally, barely perceptibly. "Sheriff's unit in Millfield," he said. "The man in grey is in custody." "Robbery attempt." Like I told him to say. He set the phone down. "Dot's okay, Gerald's okay." Maya closed her eyes for 1 second. Just one. "Mrs. Briggs was already gone before it happened," Cole said. "You walked her to the door." "I know," Maya said. "I just needed to hear it." He nodded. Cole looked at her then. The way he had looked at her once before in the diner. Not the assessing look from across the counter. Not the professional calculation of risk and response. But the other one. The one where something behind his eyes opened briefly and let her see through to whatever was under the control surface of him. "You're going to have my number in your phone before you go anywhere," he said, "and Decker's. And you're going to check in every day. A text. 1 word if you want. Doesn't matter what it says." Maya looked at him. "You do that for people." "I'm already doing it." She picked up the pen Decker had left on the table beside the soup bowl. She turned her left hand palm up, and she wrote Cole's number on the inside of her wrist in careful, slow strokes, the way you write something you intend to keep. Then she looked up, through the kitchen window, out at the flat Kansas afternoon, and for the first time since the morning had turned into something unexpected entirely. Her mind went somewhere she hadn't expected it to go. Not back to the diner. Not to the knife on the floor, or the car on the county road, or the 14 numbers on Decker's laptop screen. Forward. She thought about a woman she didn't know, somewhere in this state, right now, this afternoon, sitting in a diner on a Thursday, or walking home on a route with only one path, or eating half a piece of dry toast, because the butters never filled fast enough, and there was a shift to get to and a tip jar that never filled fast enough. A woman with no family listed on any form, no one who would make noise. A woman whose particular loneliness had been evaluated by someone with a county ID and a legitimate parking space, and categorized not as a life but as an opportunity. A woman with no one sitting at the counter watching the room. Maya didn't look away from the window. "I want to do something," she said. "I don't know what yet. I don't know how, but I want to do something with what happened today. Not just survive it. Do something with it." "That's how it usually starts," Decker said from across the kitchen. Matter-of-factly, as if this was a conversation he had heard before in various forms and always found it said something important about the person having it. Cole looked at her steadily. "You know what the difference is," he said, "between the people who will go through something like this and the ones who something like this and the ones who come out of doing something like changed in the direction of Ginny about it?" "What?" she said. "They don't wait to know exactly what they're going to do before they decide they're going to do it. They just decide first. The shape of it comes later." Maya sat with that. Outside, the afternoon held its plain and ordinary light over the flat Kansas land. Inside, the coffee went warm on the table between them. And somewhere between what had already happened and what was going to happen next, Maya Chen sat in a kitchen that wasn't hers, beside a man she had known for less than a day and trusted more than anyone she had known for years. The danger hadn't disappeared. She held that clearly without flinching. The network was smaller, but not gone. The world that had produced the man in grey and Roy stature with his intake records was still the world. Still operating on the same logic, still looking for the gaps, but she was still here, and Cole was here. And Sarah's name had been said out aloud in a room where someone understood what it cost to say it. And 14 numbers were moving through a system toward people who were going to do something about them. She looked at Cole. "Thank you," she said, "for walking through that door." He looked back at her, and his expression was the most unguarded she had seen it all day. "Thank you," he said, "for saying it back." She almost smiled. She felt it happen. The specific warmth of it, unexpected. "Real. I practiced it," she said. "The second time I practiced it." "I know," he said. "The first time was the one that mattered." Outside, the ordinary Kansas afternoon held its light over everything, and somewhere in a neighboring county, a man with a county ID and a legitimate parking space was about to have the worst week of his life. And it started with a waitress in a pink shirt who chose to listen, who chose to trust, who said, "Okay, Dad," so quietly it barely disturbed the air between them, and meant it, and didn't look away. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for someone to sit down at the right counter at the right time. Maya Chen didn't have to wait anymore, and neither did Sarah, because her name was finally said out loud in a room where someone understood exactly what it cost to say it. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you that the quietest acts of protection are often the ones built from the deepest grief, then you already know then you already know why stories like this one matter. This is Heart Tales, and if you're new here, welcome. Every story we tell is about ordinary people in extraordinary moments. The ones who choose to step in. The ones who choose to trust. The ones who say okay and mean it. If that's the kind of story you want more of, subscribe to Heart Tales right now and hit the notification bell so you never miss one. And before you go, we want to hear from you. Down in the comments, tell us, was there ever a moment in your life when a complete stranger did something that changed everything for you? Or maybe you were the one who stepped in for someone else. Either way, we want to know. Drop it below. Every single comment gets read. More stories are waiting for you on screen right now. Pick one and stay a while. Thank you for being here.